Hail, hail to the primal light. Hail to the true light. Hail to the transparent light. Hail to the light throughout the ages. Hail to the light without beginning nor end. Hail, 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 hail to the primal light. I am primal light, prepared for the world with this self-identity as Aset, Aten Ra. I am the void unmanifest. Hail, 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 hail to our primal light self, Aten Ra. Hail, 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 hail to our primal light self, the unmanifest. Hail, 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 hail to our next primal light self, the unmanifest. Hail to our void self, manifest. Hail, 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 hail to our void self, baby self, void unmanifest. Hail, 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 hail to our one true, pure, authentic self, the void, unmanifest, unified, non-dual, pure true self. Hail, 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 hail to the primal light. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I am very excited and happy that you took the time to click on this video. Thank you very much for doing so. Today I will be giving the explanation and sharing with you what is the soul. I will answer that question today. Many ones are talking about the soul, but they don't seem to know and understand what the soul is. They don't seem to know that the soul is their real self. They only know the soul as that is something that they have, and they can give it away willy-nilly to anyone of the beings without light who are requesting for their soul. So, what is the soul? And I want to explain this, that your soul, first of all, your soul is your real self that has fragmented itself to make a baby self. The soul makes a baby self. In this primal light self, we are exploring fragmented, where the masculine and the feminine aspect is one self. But when we get down to this level to come into to form human beings, the self gets fragmented at the primal light level, wherein that the masculine and the feminine aspect of the self rise up separately. This from the magnetic energy, from the self-consciousness, and the self from the void, rise up from the void. And the light, your sun, rise up from the from the sun itself, from the light. So everything is fragmented into the light, the electron, the void, and the self-consciousness, which is the magneticness. And so the consciousness, which is the mind, rise up from the magnetic energy, the consciousness energy, right? From that pure consciousness. So once the self comes into being as a self atom, and it comes through, it's formed by Aten Ra, and Supreme Ra is the surrogate mother. She brings all of the selves into being. When we come into the world now, we were given a replica of Aten Ra's mind, and her mind is the non-dual mind. So we write out our destiny. We wrote out a destiny for ourselves. If you are the original soul self, right? Now, when you come like this, you in the world might be one of the self-replica of another soul, right? So many ones in the world, you might not be the original soul, but you might be a replica of one. So what's happening is that the self-soul now, after writing out its destiny and its masculine aspect, comes into the world separately, separated from it. They are one self, because the masculine aspect is going to explore separately from the self-soul. So now the self-soul now, this is the self, the baby self, called the primal light. It's called the primal light baby self, right? Of Aten Ra. But in the world, we know this to be the soul self, right? So this soul self makes a self replica, right? And so its masculine aspect also arises too. When you arise from the soul like this, the soul is making replicas of itself. So you really belong to this soul, right? But the soul make a replica of itself, that soul, and it becomes you, right? So now the soul now makes another replica of itself. So that's two replicas of itself it makes, all right? And so does its self-consciousness also arises. Now, you in the world right now might be a self-replica of this original soul. So you have the soul within you, and within you again, you're going to make a baby self so you can animate the body with it, and the soul becomes the watcher self. Within everyone, this is how it is. So the baby self is animating, and the soul self, which is the void unmanifest, is really holding the soul into the void. And so you are really the self of maybe the original soul. So eventually you are going to have to merge back onto this original soul self, especially if you have not come into awareness of yourself. If you have come into awareness of yourself and doing all that, and castrate the ego character and know who you are, and you will eventually rise up back as an individual soul. You will gain your sovereignty, because otherwise you will just merge back into this self to be a unified soul. But when in the end of the world, everyone is going to do that, in the end of this duality world, because a new balanced world will be created. So what I'm trying to explain to you right now is that the soul in the body is the real self. The soul makes a baby self. The baby self is with its parent self in the body. It becomes, you're following the pattern, what the self does, right? But the real baby self is to this soul. But within you, you are also doing the same thing. You're gonna make a baby self, even though you are the soul of this original soul here, and you're the self replica, because you want to explore the body, but you don't want this to go into the body just like that and not have a witness. So you become the witness. You make a baby self of yourself, and then you animate the body with it. So this soul inside of the void self, the void and the soul is indivisible. It's never separated, because then the void never wants to lose any aspect of itself into this duality. So the soul self into the body, into the void. Aten Ra, within you, the soul self is planted, the replica of the supreme teacher. The supreme teacher within is planted within the soul self. Everything that you need is equipped in the soul self so that you can be successful in your journey. So, because Aten Ra knew that the duality was going to be very tricky, the void and manifest knew that the duality was going to be very tricky and very deceptive when the mind does not know itself and have its light. And so this is why every soul that comes in is equipped within itself with a supreme teacher within that is in dormancy, that arises from stillness and self-inquiry, because it is the void self, and it's not manifested yet. So it's in stillness, and it only is going to arise when you put the mind in stillness and call into your self soul. And so this is the greatest deception that all of the deities, all the gods them into the world, they are seeking the soul, because the soul is the self that is in awareness and it has its light on. This is the reason why everyone wants the soul, and you are giving it away willy-nilly. Why? Because you are under false self-identification. You do not know who you are. You are wearing this ego disguise, this ego mask, this dream character, and you are thinking that this dream character is your real self. This is not so. You are not this body, and neither are you this mind. You were never created. Yes, many of the gods have done experiment on the bodies to create variation in the bodies, but the body is not you. You are just wearing a costume. You are just wearing this body costume, right? Taking the form. But you are not the body, and you are not the mind either. You were given a replica of this tainted consciousness when you came into this duality. Supreme Ra is the world. She is a partial duality. So what's happening is that her when the sun rises, Aten Ra awakes her. She is in awareness of herself, and hail to Supreme Ra. She's up right now. She's in awareness. She's happy. In the evening, when the sun goes on the horizon, she goes into the invisible world. She has to circle the invisible world to rise up to into the visible world. And so when she does that, she goes to sleep, and this is when she's in unawareness, and her consciousness, the mind, takes over, and she becomes the duality being, the mind being created by the mind. She's wearing a disguise, and this is when you cannot trust her, because the mind is very devious. And so this is her mind. When you came into here as this self, you have yourself in a feminine form, you have yourself in a masculine form. She's gonna give you, each of you, a replica of her tainted consciousness, this mind that has no light, right? Because when you first came in, Aten Ra gave you a replica of the non-dual consciousness. This is the consciousness, right? When you wrote out your destiny, yes, you wrote out your destiny with your self soul. You know, if you are the original soul, you wrote out your destiny, and if you are the a copy of the self soul, then you wrote out your destiny with your self soul. Like the self soul, like it'll say, okay, I am gonna go into a body. You are going to go, and you are not going to go in a body. You're going to explore the duality, not wearing a body. Now this self here is going to come also with me in a body. I will not know this self of mine, and eventually we all have to find each other and merge back together. All right, and so the baby self is gonna be within the self soul, the soul here, which is going to make itself a baby self to animate the body. This one is going to do the same thing to make itself a baby self to animate the body. All right, and so this is what's happening because of you become the baby self becomes a replica of the original baby self too. Now Aten now you have to, after you write out your destiny of what you're going to do when you enter into the world in this form, you give back the non-dual consciousness back to Aten Ra. Now Supreme Ra now, her self-replica, which is the world, is going to give you this duality consciousness, right? This consciousness has no light, and this is the consciousness that is the intelligence of the world. It is the consciousness that is creating the world. Everyone in the world have a replica of this consciousness, right? And so while you have a replica of this consciousness, now you come into the world and you do not know yourself, because this consciousness is sleeping. The consciousness does not know itself. The consciousness, it goes into a craziness, a mental sickness, because the consciousness and the light is indivisible. And here, to create the duality, the consciousness lose awareness of its light, because the light gets turned off, the consciousness have no light on, and the light gets separated from itself, right? And so the consciousness light now becomes a moon. And so the moon that you see in the sky is the sun. For this consciousness, the mind of Supreme Ra, this light that is turned off. When you see a full moon night, this is when Supreme Ra turns her light in the invisible world, and this is when Supreme Ra turns her light in the invisible world, and this is when the consciousness gets a light down into the invisible world, because usually the invisible world is in darkness. And so once Supreme Ra gives you a replica, she gives your masculine aspect, and she gives you a copy of her light, but she gives it to you in a baby form, right? So you have the baby of the consciousness, which we call in the world the mind, right? So now you become a duality being. Right now, you go to sleep, your consciousness go to sleep, and the consciousness took over. You go to sleep, your consciousness obscure you. The consciousness, the mind takes precedent over you, because you now are entering the world as the baby self, that baby self that you created. It's the one that is animating the body, and now the soul self becomes the watcher, because it's watching over to observe what you're doing, and also to eventually merge back with you. So now that you are the baby self, of the soul, and the soul is the watcher, is watching. That's why the soul has this light on. The soul has this light. So the soul is just entering into the body like this, with itself, and with itself inside of the void, right? And And the soul is in here now like this, doesn't have a consciousness attached to it. So the soul is here, you are here with the consciousness attached to you, right? Separated like this, like I showed you right here, where the consciousness is blocking you, cocooning its magnetic energy around you, and it's cocooning its magnetic energy around you. And so right now the soul is here like this. The soul now is in the void, and the soul is in stillness. And the soul is only going to rise up because the soul is in the body loosely. It resides in the center of the chest into the void. And the soul will stay there into the void. And if you don't call into it, it will never rise up because it's in complete stillness. And so it is your job to come into awareness of this, that your soul is your real self, and you need to call into your soul because everything that you need is within your soul self, right? You are just this fragmented self right here from the soul, so the soul can observe its baby self. But the soul goes into stillness after it does this, and it leaves the baby self to animate the body and to come into awareness. But the baby self never come into awareness, never wake up, because the baby self couldn't wake up because the mind tricked it and cocooned it. And this is why you'll notice that even from a very young, your mind is telling you a lot of negative things. Who is the mind talking to when the mind is telling these negative things? Who's the mind talking to? The mind is telling itself these negative things. And the mind does not want the self to rise up. So this is why don't listen to your mind, because from very young you see that your mind, you could not trust your mind because your mind is always telling you stuff that is not true. Who's the mind talking to? The mind is telling itself, because what? It has cocooned itself in its magnetic energy. It does not want the self to rise up. So when you see the mind is telling you stuff, it is talking to the baby self. Yeah. So this is the reason why you have to rise up. You have to rise up against your mind so that the mind can know that you must take precedent over the mind. Yeah. And so this is what you must do. The soul is your real self, because all of the deities, they know this. This is why they've been tricking you. They're the one that's seeking your soul, but you're not seeking your soul. Why are you not seeking your soul? If you give your soul to one of the deities, the gods, Jesus, Allah, any one of them, Ogun, or Shango, Olubatala, Oshun, Ifa, whatever name they call themselves, aliens, archangels, Anunnaki, Enoch, any one of them, any one of the deities that you, Archangel Michael, any one of them that you work with, right? Because they're all on different levels, right? If you give them, all of them want your soul, they want your light. You should get wise now and say, why are they all seeking the soul? You should seek your soul too. Yeah, because they are smart. They are seeking your soul and you're not seeking it. Don't give it to anybody. It is yourself, because what they do, they just pull it out of the body. It's easy for them to just pull it out of your body because it's loosely attached in the body, and they pull it away from you. And so you want to call within yourself soul, so that your soul will rise up to teach you about yourself. The supreme teacher within the self soul rise up and pull this ego off of you. Let me show you how it does that. Because remember that you are the duality being right now. Yourself is hiding behind the mind. The mind is cocooned into a coffin of magnetic energy. And yourself cannot rise up. It needs assistance from the supreme teacher within that will rise up to teach it. Once the supreme teacher rises up from the self soul, it pulls this ego off of you. And now here you are now separated from it. You are the self, the spirit self, and then the void is placed between you and your mind. I know your soul self is still in the body, still here in the center of your chest, still loose. Where you can, if you talk to it, it move under your hand and it will move in your body and speak to you and tell you things. Know you have your soul to help you. But what you want to do is to merge with yourself. Once you do this, you can merge your spirit self with your soul self to be one unified self. Yeah, and this is when the supreme teacher, the primal guru, that is the parent self to the supreme teacher, will come into you, and you'll get to meet that aspect of yourself, that primal teacher. And so there's so many aspects to the self that's in the non-duality. You are exploring the world and you are only encountering the duality selves, the self that has no light. They are ourselves, but they have no light. They do not know. They're all seeking your self soul. So this is the reason why if you seek your self soul, that you will rise up and you will know your non-dual self. You'll know your real self. Instead of knowing only the duality, you'll get to know the real, because the duality is the dream, and you'll get to know the non-duality, which is the real. So now it's time. How do you do this? You do this by stillness. The supreme teacher within, the self-soul, comes into awareness, rise up from the meditation through stillness and self-inquiry. And so you want to be putting devotion and self-love into yourself so that you can spend time with your self-soul, so you can know your soul. Call into your self-soul and know that right here in your self-heart, the heart is the center of balance. Bring the mind down into the heart, so which is in the center of your chest, so that the void can purify it. Your self-heart is located in the center of your chest, in the void. The mind is a fractal of consciousness as a baby mind, given to the person by the Supreme Ra. The mind, like the consciousness mind, is very corrupted, habit forming, and so you have to be careful of the habits that you form. So better you form good habits than bad habits, because the bad habits, they're so hard to break out of and can become very obsessive. It dwells between its memory and imagination. This is the reason why it is so very important that you practice daily stillness to bring the mind down into the void. Due to this, consciousness mind is prone to mental sickness, and many develop many bad habits and attachments to desires and things. The mind needs time to rest in stillness. The mind will develop mental sickness if it does not rest in stillness and gets purified by the void self. The mind must be purified by the void self. Daily stillness of resting the mind in the self-heart is vital for a balanced self. Centering the heart meditation, you must practice it daily. The void meditation. You got to bring the mind down into the heart. So you want to have this hand formation, that this will get you prepared and ready, so that you remember that you have to bring your mind through that triangular space right here. Yeah, you have to bring your mind down through that into the center of your chest, into the void, and just visualize it coming out of your head and going right through that triangular space and going into the void. I immerse the mind into the light of the self. Visualize this. Mind is balanced. Mind is still. I immerse mind into the light of the self. Mind is balanced. Mind is still. Mind, return to purity. Mind, return to your original source. I am pure, luminous Chant for calling into the Supreme Teacher within to rise up. And sometimes you don't even have to do that. You just have to stay in stillness, connecting to the void, and the Supreme Teacher will rise up. I call on my great Supreme Teacher within, Self Soul. I call on my great Supreme Teacher within my Self Soul. I call on my great Supreme Wisdom within. I call on my great Supreme Intelligence within. I call on my great Supreme Wisdom. I call on Ten Ra. I call on my soul self. I call on the great Supreme Teacher within my soul self, the void self. I call. The void self is the Supreme Teacher within. It is Aten Ra in as the Supreme Teacher within. And so you want to call on the void self. It is the Supreme Teacher within. It will rise up to do the job of pulling this ego off of the self, and it will liberate the spirit self, and now you'll become a partial duality being, no longer existing like this in obscurity where you do not know yourself. Now you will be in connection with your soul. You will know your soul. Your soul is in the body with you, directing you, and this is amazing. And so this is the level that you want to get to wake up yourself from sleeping. Because right now, you are just wearing this mind avatar. You are a dream character. And you need to rise up and stop listening to this mind. This mind is very impure. This mind does not know the truth. And the mind is obscuring you. And so you want to come in true realization. So I am going to do with you now some vibration that is very helpful.